So today we're talking about podcasts, right? Who's doing it right? Who's doing it wrong? Those types of things. Yeah, it's a great idea for an episode, right, Bob?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Except,
Oh, yes.
except we haven't done this in so long. It's been a couple weeks. You get a little rusty. We forgot to change the name of the episode, so it still says the Meeting Planner Music Club.
And that's how professionals do it. There we go.
Well, that actually does speak exactly to the types of things we're about to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be talking about podcasts, the right things, the things people are doing right, things people are doing wrong. But please don't think that we are experts ourselves. We learn as we go. So we've made mistakes, which is highlighted by what the research and what we've observed. Primarily because we run FizzPod, which is the aggregator of podcasts from the event industry. Please do visit fizzpod.com. And the mistakes we've made in our own social media accounts regarding FizzPod and regarding the Bullet List podcast and all that sort of thing. We've kind of discovered what we're doing wrong and what other people are doing wrong simply because of what we've observed while building and running FizzPod.
So basically, we don't follow our own advice?
It's a matter of gradual improvement.
So how did we want to split this up today? So if we're going to talk about doing it right, I think maybe we do a doing it right. Maybe we talk about who's doing it right. Then we talk about what are some of the things that are doing it wrong.
The common mistakes that seem to be, again, because of what we do on FizzPod, please visit fizzpod.com. We've noticed
I like the way you're doing that.
Thank you. I'm practicing.
I can tell.
I'm good at this. Things we've noticed regarding fizzpod.com, please visit. That we're not going to name names, but there are some common mistakes that people, the podcasters can do better.
Well, and when it comes to doing stuff wrong, right? Obviously, we just did something. I did. I mean, that's all me, right? I just, and it would feel terrible for me if somebody called me out. Whereas if I kind of listen to somebody talking about the general things people are doing wrong, that enables me to fix things. Like on any podcast that isn't doing everything right, it doesn't mean right. They don't deserve to be picked on.
Oh no, we're not picking on anybody else because it's simply not worth it. But no. because who knows? They'll improve it, and that mistake no longer exists.
Well, and they're trying just like we are.
Yeah, but as I said, it's as we've always said, done is better than perfect.
Yep.
So once it's done, you can review and you can then make those gradual improvements over time.
Like changing the name in the episode.
Yeah, that kind of helps. What can I say?
All right. So let's talk about doing it right.
Righty.
So what are some of the things? This will be like my Bob interview. So what are some of the things that podcasters need to do it right?
Right. So again, because of what I observed on FizzPod, please visit. I find a lot of them are actually have. So if you've got a podcast that is connected to your business, right? It's used to promote your business or to raise a profile of the business, whatever it is. You've got to have a link from the podcast to your business, to the business website. And I find quite a few of those missing. Now, the thing is, if your episodes are hosted on a podcasting platform, for example,
like
Anchor, you do have the opportunity to put in links. So put the links in. And I find quite a few of them are doing that. So if you enjoyed the episode, you want to find out more, you can go to the social media account. You can go to the website. You can go to the Facebook or LinkedIn page.
Yeah, and it's actually amazing how many podcasts don't do that, though. There was the other day, there's this amazing podcast, and I'm listening to it. I was on an airplane, and we land, and I'm going, let me go check out more about that person, because they were talking about you know, projects they've done and things like that, and you go to find the link to their website and there isn't one. So
No,
that
it's
now this person was interesting enough, and the what they were talking about was of such interest to me that I actually took the time to Google the person's name and actually find their website. Most people won't do that.
that becomes a stumbling block. So if you've got to do the one more thing to find them, or in your case, 2 or 3 more steps to find them, yeah, an awful lot of people won't do that.
No.
So the second thing is, as we mentioned, not just the links back to the website, but how about links to social media? You might want to give feedback on an episode that you've listened to.
Yes, and we actually talked about this before we went live. That like ours, that's one thing we did. We made sure we did right, where we actually put the social media links in there, and we have a Facebook page for the Bullet List, and we have a LinkedIn page for the Bullet List. But then there are other ways. But there are other ways to do it, right? We were talking about, you know, the one podcast that they don't have any social stuff on about the podcast. They're driving it all to the hosts, which again, that's fine too. Just a different way to do it.
Well, as we talked about the business links back to the website, if it's if the business is actually just one person, then you might actually have a raise the profile of that one person. That's perfectly fine. You know,
Yeah.
you can do that. That's cool.
Descriptions too are important, I think. You know, when you describe your podcast, and like there's a couple, and they're actually YouTubers, not podcasters, but there's this couple, right? And they do all kinds of stuff about audiovisual for podcasting, YouTubing, events, all that, you know. But then they also mix in like home stuff, right? Like home renovations and travel. And when you go to their website, the description just doesn't do it. Doesn't explain it. And so they're I mean, they're very engaging. So you watch them, but you kind of don't know what they're about.
So, descriptions should only well, let's call it what it is: show notes.
Yeah.
You know, so if in the episode, like we're talking about fizzpod.com, please go visit. Then, you know, in the show notes, because we've mentioned it, you should put a link so people can find out more without having to Google it. It makes sense.
It does.
But don't go overboard, as in, you know, it's not a blog post, it's a description of what the show's about with a few links and where you can find out more. That's all it should be, not, you know, a couple of pages. And because that's what the description of the podcast is for, not of the episode.
War and Peace.
Yeah.
But you should still try and hit 300 words. And I know it's just an arbitrary number, but you should try and hit 300 words.
Okay. If you
What's
say
next?
So. Okay. And the one that you skipped over for some bizarre reason, being consistent if you can. We aren't. It's one of the things that we don't do, and it's big. Well, please, there's a good reason. There's a good reason why.
And in the event industry, this is actually something that's really, really common. So you can tell when event season is by how consistent we are, right? So all through August, it was really great. And then September, we were good, but kind of stumbled a little bit. And then you hit October, and because I'm on the planning side, your whole life just goes poof.
Oh, it does. Good example, actually. So the week of IMEX 2022 in the US version, as you know, I curate or make a list of event industry podcasts on the Event Planner News blog. So it was going like 50 episodes. Next week is 55 episodes. The week of IMEX, 30.
Right. Just, you know, yeah. Like literally I've been traveling and I've gone back to back live events, right? And not all of them. I mean, a couple are here in Chicago, but most of them are out in the world. So you just physically can't, you know, and we all know how events run, right? You know, you go into the conference office at 5:30 in the morning, and when you get back to your hotel room, it's 10 o'clock at night. There's just no, you know, and yes, we did prove that if it was your job or if it was part of your job, you could actually go live from a show. I could,
Yeah.
but I can't sit down and have an episode like this. It just is not feasible.
No, you were in Canada.
Yes.
Then you came back and you had a week's worth of event stuff to do that totally tied you up for one reason or another. So yeah, consistency can be difficult, but if you've got a really good process and if you anticipate it, you can build up a collection of episodes ready to be scheduled and to be broadcast, then you can kind of work around it. But
well, I mean, you actually said the key word, process, right? And that's one thing that we've been working on for a while, right? And because you and I do this partially for fun, right? There's a business thing to it, but it's partially for fun. We try one process and go, you know what, that doesn't work, right? And then we're trying a new process, right? But if you can find a process that at least works for you, it does make it easier. You can foresee those things coming. Like, I am not going to be able to record an episode for 2 weeks because I'm going to be traveling, and you can actually record them beforehand. Yada yada.
Yeah. So it's all good. So who is doing it right? Who can we name?
All right, so I think you picked a couple who are in the event industry, and then I just picked a couple of podcasts that I listen to that are, call them ancillary to the event industry.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. They're not in the event industry, but they are good examples of. I would like to highlight Meetings Today, their podcast.
They do a good job. Their biggest thing is they're consistent.
Okay, so when I look at their latest episode, 24th of October on FizzPod, Visible Data shows promising industry outlook for 2023. So there's two links that I can pick up. One is for the episode, which in this case would take it straight to Anchor FM and to that particular episode. The second link I get is the link for the actual podcast itself. So there's two separate. The one where you get to see all the home, like a homepage on Anchor, and then where you get a list, or to go to a particular episode. When I go to the homepage for Meetings Today, I look at their page on Anchor. You know, big logos as you get. This is on Spotify, support, message, whatever. But they then have social media buttons. One goes to Facebook, the other one goes to Instagram. There's a Twitter account, which is twitter.com/meetings today. So it'll be @meetings today. And also their YouTube channel. So they are linking back, which is really, really cool.
Well, and now know that, you know, Meetings Today is going to do it better than most, only because they already have the publishing mindset.
Yeah.
Making sure the links are in place and all of that is something that goes with the traditional. Wow, I just said traditional when I was talking about digital media. The traditional channels that they're using, their website and things like that, it's all there. So it was a natural progression when you get into podcasting to make sure that all of those elements are there. A lot of, like, if you're an AV company, that started a podcast, and I'm thinking of one in particular. They are on the East Coast, amazing crew. They do great work. It is impossible to find them, right? You listen to their podcast, you're like, that was great. And then you're like, how do I find their website? And it took me 20 minutes of Googling.
Yeah. That happens. All right, so you actually got two picks here, Two Bobs and WTF Pod.
Yeah, Mark Maron's podcast, where he does it, like, if you go to his site, I think it's a WTF Pod or whatever. He and his crew, because obviously there's a crew to that one. It's a big production. They do it right. I mean, he's got all the socials, they've got the merch, all of that stuff is captured on the site. It's easy to find things, it's nice and clear. And then the flip side of that is the Two Bobs podcast. And by the way, Two Bobs comes from the movie Office Space. That's where they got the name for it, because neither one of them are named Bob. But with theirs, they've intentionally left stuff off, right? Because they want to drive you to the hosts rather than to the podcast itself. Again, very thought out way that they're actually doing things. But those are two that I think are doing it right.
That sounds cool. Yeah, because I mean, you can either raise the profile, as it were, for or raise the brand, personal brand, or you can raise the brand, the business brand. You can do it in two ways.
Yes.
Which is fine.
So
it's effectively what we're doing right now.
All right, so let's bring it back around and let's figure out a conclusion. What are we trying to tell people here?
Right. So I initially entitled "Doing It Wrong," but the thing is, we've kind of mentioned that. So we're a bullet list. So this is a list of things that you could say we should be doing or should be checking for, the things that we would like to see. So, for example, on the profile page for a podcast, like on Anchor, where you have a profile page, a homepage, as it were, please link or provide a link back to if it's a personal podcast, to your personal website. If it's a business podcast, to your business website.
If you are a conference or an association and you're looking for attendees and members, it is mission critical for you to put a link in there, because that's how people are going to go and sign up.
Now, we're doing this from the context that you're doing a podcast for your business. So please don't make your podcast become an isolated, unconnected thing, because if anybody really likes what you're doing, and people will like it, how on earth are they going to find out more information? How are they going to connect with you? You've just got to put that link in. And that also applies to number 2, which is social media buttons. So important, because that's how people interact with each other these days.
Yeah. And there's no harm, no foul in leaving off the social networks you're not part of. Make sure, if you are active, if your event, your association, whatever it is active on a social channel, there should be a link to that social channel where you do post new episodes and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Number 3, we've already mentioned it, being consistent as best as possible. And if you do skip an episode for whatever reason, you could just announce it on your social media.
Yeah. So we're not having an episode this week.
No, we're both, doing real jobs and we can't do it. Whatever. Yeah.
And the other thing, though, is also don't beat yourself up either. Right. If you're an organization that has been consistent for a year, right? You got 52 episodes in the can and you miss episode 53 because somebody you got COVID, whatever it happens to be. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, keep moving.
Yeah. It's not the end of the world, because most podcasts, especially within the event industry, they are going to be like 1 or 2 people who get together, maybe with a guest, and they do stuff. You're not doing PBS, Radio 4, whatever. You're not doing a massive production. So really, it's not that much. Don't beat yourself up about it. Next thing would be descriptions. Most of them seem to be quite awful. Either they put in too much text, as we've already said, like War and Peace, or not enough, because it's like one sentence that really doesn't entice people to listen to the episode.
Yes, and it comes down to, if you have to, hire a writer.
Just put something in that is going to just highlight what it's about and get people intrigued so they listen.
So many organizations don't take advantage of what they already have. So if you're looking at a mid-sized association, right, they probably have a marketing department, which is 1 or 2, maybe 2 people. They can help.
Yeah.
Right. If they're not running the podcast, enlist them. right? Bring them in and say, hey, we need good descriptions. Can you help us out? We're recording the episodes. We're taking the time. Can you at least write a paragraph?
Exactly. There's all sorts of people out there who provide services to conferences and meetings that can help with that. I mean, what about our friend Mike McCallum?
Yeah, they'll do the whole thing for you.
Podcasting for associations there. The last thing, people have short attention spans. I haven't mentioned this well, we haven't talked about it in the previous. This is one of attention spans are long, very short, not long, very short. So if you're listening to a podcast, you don't want to be sitting there for an hour and a half because your listener is going to fall asleep or just quit halfway through. From my research, 20 to 30 minutes.
More than enough.
Which is what we try and aim for. And that's the reason for it. That's why we aim for 20 to 30 minutes, because we know that after 30 minutes, your audience is going to tail off. They're going to lose interest, and you haven't got to the point yet, and they're off.
And I mean, unless it's rock solid, right? You know, if you look at the WTF podcast, I mean, they're always an hour and 20 minutes. But they're engaging conversations, right? And so listening to them is like, oh, okay, it's, you know, the hour goes by really quick, right? That's a good one to take on your evening jog or walk or whatever. But for most business related podcasts, 20 to 30 minutes is plenty.
Yeah, there's a guy I'm trying to remember. I can't remember his name, which is no point in mentioning it really.
Even there's one podcast I listen to. Each episode is less than 10.
Well, this is the thing. It's like blog posts. People like to write like somewhere up to 600 words, maybe 1,000 words. Think it's going to really work really, really well. But don't forget, there's people like Seth Godin who does like a paragraph and no comments either. So he moves on. But that one paragraph is really, really meaningful. So he just keeps doing it. You can do the same with podcasts, where you can do just a 10-minute episode, but if it's got great content, then that's all you need is 10 minutes.
All you need.
Don't take a 30-minute podcast and make it last for an hour, because you're just stringing it out.
Well, there you go. Well, we shouldn't string this out then. I think we've done well.
23 minutes according to my timer, but maybe. But yeah, so if anybody's got any questions regarding podcast episodes, we're happy to talk to you about it. Send us a message, ping us.
Find us at thebullet-list.com.
It's a place to be. That's all the place you need to be. And of course, we're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn now. So come and join us on our LinkedIn page.
And till next time.